There's a hierarchy in nature that nobody talks about. We obsess over lions, the kings, the noble predators, the ones with the mane and the roar. But if you actually watch what happens on the savannah, you realize something uncomfortable. The animals everyone despises are often the ones winning. Hyenas aren't the villains of nature documentaries because they're weak. They're the villains because they win in a way that makes us deeply uncomfortable. They don't follow the rules. They don't respect the hierarchy. They show up when you're tired. They work in groups when you're alone, and they take what you killed because they understand something fundamental about power that most creatures and most people never figure out. Today, we're talking about hyenas and what they reveal about a psychology that's far more common in human society than we'd like to admit, the psychology of the opportunist. And here's the thing, if you understand hyena behavior, you start seeing it everywhere. In boardrooms, in social circles, in relationships, in the way certain people seem to always come out on top without ever playing fair. So what makes an opportunist? It's not stupidity, it's not weakness, it's actually the opposite. It's a specific set of strategies that work precisely because they ignore the moral framework everyone else is operating within. Hyenas are masters of this, and understanding how they do it might be the most practical thing you learn today about human nature. Let's start with the most obvious thing. Hyenas hunt together. But here's what most people get wrong about this. When we see a pack of hyenas, we think teamwork, we think cooperation. We imagine it's noble, like they're brothers united for a common cause. That's not what's happening. What's happening is far more calculating. Hyenas don't cooperate because they like each other. They cooperate because together they can take down prey they couldn't take down alone. And more importantly, once they've killed that prey, they can defend it from animals that would normally dominate them one-on-one. A single hyena versus a lion, the lion wins. 5 hyenas versus a lion, the outcome changes. The hyena pack isn't united by bonds of loyalty. They're united by the recognition that their individual weakness becomes collective strength. That's calculation, not camaraderie.
This is the first principle of opportunism, finding strength in numbers, not for the sake of unity, but for the sake of leverage. In human terms, this is why certain people build crews, networks, alliances, not because they genuinely care about the people involved, but because numbers create power. An opportunist alone is just a person with ambition. An opportunist with a network is someone who can move mountains. Hyenas figured this out millions of years ago. But here's where it gets interesting. Hyenas don't just cooperate with random hyenas. There's a hierarchy, and it matters. Female hyenas are larger and more dominant than males. They eat first. They breed first. The entire pack structure is organized around this reality. But, and this is crucial, this hierarchy isn't maintained through constant displays of dominance like you see with lions. Lions need to roar, to posture, to constantly remind everyone who's in charge. Hyenas maintain hierarchy through something far more subtle and far more effective: social exclusion and coordinated aggression. If a lower-ranking hyena tries to eat out of turn, the higher-ranking females simply attack. It's not a challenge or a contest. It's swift, coordinated, and completely decisive. This is the second principle of opportunism. The enforcement of hierarchy happens fast and collectively. Opportunists understand something that honorable creatures don't. You don't debate power, you demonstrate it. You don't negotiate status, you enforce it. And you do it in a way that makes it clear that resistance isn't just unlikely to succeed, it's likely to result in overwhelming retaliation. In human psychology, this is the behavior of people who understand that social hierarchies are real, whether we admit it or not, and that the fastest way to establish your position is through swift, coordinated action that makes the cost of defiance unbearable. They're not bullies in the traditional sense. They don't broadcast their aggression, they just execute it with precision. Now let's talk about what hyenas are really known for: stealing kills. This is where the opportunist psychology becomes almost poetic in its ruthlessness. A lion takes down a zebra. The lion is tired, focused on feeding, vulnerable. A pack of hyenas sees this from a distance. They coordinate, they approach, and they overwhelm. The lion has to abandon its kill or risk being torn apart by a coordinated pack. The hyena gets fed without doing the exhausting, dangerous work of making the kill. This is so effective that hyenas often don't hunt at all. Why exhaust yourself bringing down prey when you can wait for someone else to do it and then take it? Why take the risk when you can wait for someone else to take the risk? This is the third principle of opportunism: maximizing gain while minimizing personal cost and risk. In human society, opportunists do this constantly. They enter fields after the hard work is done and capitalize on the infrastructure others built. They join teams after the foundation is laid and take credit for momentum. They spot trends after they're validated and claim they were early. They're not creating value, they're extracting it. And here's the thing that makes them so effective: they're not ashamed of this. They don't pretend to be builders. They're just very, very good at recognizing when something valuable is already there and making it theirs. The fascinating part is that hyenas are actually incredibly intelligent. Studies show they solve problems, they plan, they have complex social communication. They're not mindless scavengers, they're strategic thinkers who have simply decided that honor doesn't pay. And they're right. In terms of raw fitness, how many offspring they produce, how long they live, how much territory they control, hyenas are wildly successful. They're more successful than lions in many ecosystems. They just don't get the prestige.
And that reveals something crucial about opportunist psychology. Opportunists don't care about prestige, they care about outcomes. Lions need to be seen as noble, as dominant, as worthy of respect. That need constrains them. It means they have to defend their kills even when it's dangerous. It means they have to engage in direct competition even when there's a smarter path. They're bound by an internal code about what a real predator does. Hyenas have no such code. If it works, they do it. If it gets them food and status and territory, the method is irrelevant. This is why opportunists so often seem to succeed despite appearing to have less talent, less intelligence, less preparation. They're not actually less talented, they're just willing to operate by different rules. They're not constrained by the same ethics that constrain more honorable creatures. Let's look at the social structure more carefully, because this is where the psychology gets really dark. Within a hyena clan, there are alliances. A high-ranking female might have allies, other females who support her, who back her up in conflicts, who coordinate with her. These aren't friendships, they're strategic partnerships. The benefit is mutual, but the moment the alliance stops being beneficial, it ends. Hyenas switch alliances constantly. A female who was your ally against another female might be working against you next week. Loyalty is conditional and always calculated. Opportunists in human society operate exactly like this. They have friends, but the friendship is a means to an end. They have mentors, but only as long as those mentors are useful. They have partners, but only as long as the partnership serves them. This isn't cynicism, this is clarity. They see social bonds for what they often actually are, transactional arrangements dressed up in the language of loyalty. Here's another thing hyenas do that's worth noting. They're incredibly adaptable. They can survive on almost anything: meat, bone, skin, vegetation, carrion. They have incredibly powerful jaws that can crush bone. They can live in deserts, forests, grasslands. When conditions change, hyenas change. They don't specialize in one hunting technique or one type of prey. They develop whatever capabilities work in their current environment. Opportunists in human life do the same thing. They learn whatever skills are valuable in their current context. They shift their positioning based on what the market will pay for. They're chameleons. They're not rigidly attached to a single identity or a single way of operating. This adaptability is one of their greatest strengths because it means they're never locked in to a failing strategy. When something stops working, they shift. And here's where we get to the uncomfortable truth. This strategy works. Hyenas are thriving. They're expanding their range. They're outcompeting larger predators in many ecosystems. They're producing more offspring than lions. By every measure of evolutionary success, hyenas are winning. And they're winning precisely because they operate without honor. Now here's the question that matters. In human psychology, we have this internal conflict. We want to succeed, but we also want to be good. We want to win, but we want to win fairly. We want to get ahead, but we want to do it with integrity. And opportunists, human opportunists, they've resolved that conflict by simply choosing success. They've decided that integrity is a luxury they can't afford, and that in most situations, nobody is actually keeping score on the methods anyway. They watch honorable people labor over ethical dilemmas. They watch people turn down opportunities because they feel wrong. They watch people self-sabotage because of principle, and they don't understand it. To them, it seems insane. Why would you give yourself a handicap? The thing about hyena psychology is that it works best when most creatures are playing by different rules. A single hyena in a population of honorable lions is at a massive disadvantage. But when there are enough hyenas, when there are enough creatures willing to operate without constraint, the game changes. Suddenly, the rules themselves become disadvantageous for the honorable players.
This is the ecosystem we're actually living in. There are enough opportunists operating without moral constraint that adhering to moral constraints puts you at a disadvantage. Not always, but often enough that it matters. The people getting the raises, the promotions, the opportunities, they're not always the most talented or the hardest working. They're often the ones willing to take shortcuts, to step on people, to take credit for others' work, to promise things they can't deliver and move on before anyone notices. Here's what's crucial to understand. Hyenas aren't monsters. They're not evil. They're animals operating in an ecosystem with specific constraints and specific opportunities. They've simply optimized for survival and reproduction in that context. They're not cruel. Cruelty implies intent to cause suffering beyond what's necessary. Hyenas take what they need. They're efficient. They're practical. Human opportunists work the same way. They're not necessarily bad people. They're people who have decided that the rules of honor are negotiable, that ethics are contextual, that principles are luxuries. And in many situations, in many ecosystems, they're right. The ruthless person who takes the opportunity gets further than the principled person who waits for the right moment. But here's what the hyena teaches us about how this ends. The hyena that operates without constraint in a group that still has hierarchy still gets constrained. The female hyena that tries to challenge the dominant female without allies gets torn apart. The hyena that tries to take food without having the numbers to back it up starves. Even in a system without moral constraints, there are still constraints. They're just different ones. In human terms, this means opportunists don't get away with unlimited behavior. They just get away with it as long as the cost of retaliating against them is too high. The moment the cost changes, the moment they lose their allies, the moment they lose their leverage, the moment someone with more power decides to move against them, they're vulnerable. Hyenas survive because they're part of an ecosystem with rules, even if those rules are different from the rules we expect. The real insight here isn't that opportunists are smarter or better or more successful in an absolute sense. It's that they're operating with a different value system, and in certain contexts, that value system works better. They're winning not because their strategy is objectively superior, but because they've removed the constraint that everyone else is operating under. They've given themselves permission to do things that produce better short-term results, and they've accepted the risks that come with that. The question for you is simple. What constraints are you operating under? Are they constraints you've chosen because you believe in them, or are they constraints you've accepted because you assumed everyone else was operating under them too? Because if it's the second one, if you're following rules that everyone around you is actually ignoring, then you're not being honorable, you're just being naive. Hyenas teach us that the game has different rules than we think it does. The only question is whether you're going to keep playing by the old rules or acknowledge the game that's actually being played. That's the psychology of opportunism, and it's everywhere.